Your luxury bags may not be so luxurious at all. In this video, which is part 1 of a 3-part series on authentics, inspired bags or dupes, and fakes, I'll tell you why. Hi YouTube, Autumn Beckman here. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My channel is all about luxury living on a budget, from high-end luxury to the everyday luxuries. Like I said, this video is the first in a 3-part series that I'm doing this week. This video is on authentic handbags, the next will be on inspired bags or dupes, and the last will be on fake bags. I'll be talking about the pros and cons of each, so if that sounds interesting to you, please make sure you subscribe and click that bell notification icon so you don't miss anything. Also be sure to like any of the videos that you enjoy. What I'll be doing in this 3-part series is talking about the pros and cons of each of these different kinds of bags. And the pros and cons that I'm giving are not necessarily my opinions. I'm taking information that I've heard from people throughout my time on YouTube and some in real life, and I'm putting it all together in one place so you can have a lot of different perspectives and then you can make up your own mind. So that said, the things that I'm talking about are not necessarily all things that I agree with. I do agree with some of them, I disagree with others, but the point is I'm presenting you with many different sides of the argument. And please be sure to let me know what you think about each of these videos in the description box below, especially if you have an argument that I didn't include in this series. Now, since this is the first video in the series, let's talk about why I decided to do this series at all and why I felt it was important. Since I've been on YouTube and been making videos about luxury handbags, I have discovered that people have very, very strong opinions about inspired bags, fake bags, and authentic bags, and which ones are okay and which ones are definitely not okay. I've noticed that people not only have these strong opinions, but can be extremely judgmental toward other people. And I don't just mean people with authentic bags being judgmental toward people with fakes. I mean people who aren't even into luxury being very judgmental toward people who buy authentic bags. There's judgment all the way around in this handbag world. Now, I know there are plenty of other industries that also deal with fakes and with dupes. Electronics, clothing, sporting goods, and maybe I'm just not in those worlds as much as the handbag world, but I don't see an uproar in those communities like I see in the handbag community. So what's the difference? Why do people have such strong opinions about luxury handbags? Personally, my theory is that it comes down to marketing. I think these luxury design houses have done such a great job of putting their merchandise and their brands on pedestals, making their products, their handbags, status symbols, and people buy into that. I've certainly bought into it, though I don't anymore. And in this series, as with all of my videos, I try to look at all these handbags in a very realistic way. Personally, I don't put them on a pedestal. I try to look at the reality of this handbag world and share that perspective with you. Because after all, they are just handbags, and the companies who make them are just trying to sell handbags to make profit. That is their goal, and they've done an excellent job at it. It makes me think that the people who are being so judgmental, especially in this case the ones who buy authentics and are very much against fakes and even dupes and inspired bags, it makes me think these people really buy into that marketing and that hype. It seems like, in some of the comments that I've heard, it seems like these people think that they are better somehow than people who buy the dupes and the fakes. They seem to believe that their handbags, their authentic luxury handbags, are somehow more special, better than other handbags. In some cases, there seem to be people who believe that you have to earn the right to have one of the luxury handbags, in the sense that you have to be a certain income level, because I've heard arguments that people who aren't at those income levels shouldn't have those bags. And comments like those, like all of those, make me think that the people who think the authentic bags are better than everything else, it seems like that mindset is just all about snobbery. Now, that's just my personal opinion. But let's take a look at the arguments I've heard about why authentic bags are so much better than any other kind of bag. I've heard people say that the quality of the materials of the authentic bags is better than dupes or fakes. In my experience, that's not necessarily necessarily true. I know that there are super fakes. Personally, I have not seen one of those in person, but I've heard that some of those super fakes are made in the same factories as the real bags. Now, I don't know whether that is necessarily true. I've heard that rumor go around, but I've also read it in a book that I'll link below from someone who did a lot of research at these factories. I've also had inspired bags. I have inspired bags in my collection now where the materials are fantastic. Also, the quality of the materials of authentic bags in some cases has decreased. We've certainly seen that with Louis Vuitton, and I'm not as familiar with Chanel, but I've heard people who are familiar with them say that the quality has declined. People also argue that the craftsmanship is better in authentic bags versus other kind of bags. That again has not been my experience, and it's not been the experience that I've heard from other people. Now, it can be true for sure. Before I started buying luxury bags, I purchased several fake bags, and they were cheap fakes, not well made. But I had a fake Neverfull, just like this one in the back, except this is the authentic one. And I loved that bag. I'd been dreaming about a Neverfull for a long time, and I was perfectly happy to have that fake until it started falling apart on me pretty quickly. And the first time I went into a Louis Vuitton store and I saw one of these Neverfulls in person, and I saw how thick the leather straps were and the craftsmanship of that bag compared to the cheap fake that I had, the craftsmanship was tons better. And maybe that's the case overall in general. However, we all know, we've all heard these stories that Louis Vuitton in particular has had many issues in the last few years with craftsmanship problems, where their quality has really declined. They do not seem to be doing very well at quality control. Another argument people make is that the authentic bags are original designs from these luxury fashion houses. Sometimes that's very true. Many times it is not. Just like the inspired bags and the fakes take their designs from these authentic bags, the luxury houses also pull elements of design from other design houses. They all copy each other. That's how we have trends after all. Trends don't usually happen with just one item from one luxury house. Trends spread because everybody copies each other. I also hear the argument that luxury bags are handmade, and that in most cases is certainly not true. All these items are mass-produced. There is no way that they'd be able to make them all by hand, at least in the sense that a lot of us think of handmade as being like every stitch is done by hand. It's my understanding that Hermes does that with some of their bags, like the Birkin, the Kelly, but Louis Vuitton certainly does not, and I have been told by sales associates there that they are handmade. They are not handmade, unless you count handmade as being made on sewing machines. To me, that's not the same thing. And in fact, I'll link one of my videos below about the Texas Louis Vuitton factory that opened up, I think it was last year. And I linked there some footage from a news station where they show the inside of the factory and how the bags are being made. And it's all on machinery. Another argument we hear about why the authentics are so much better is that they are made in somehow more legitimate countries, like France, Italy, Spain, even the United States, which are somehow better than being made, for example, in China. This isn't necessarily true either. When you hear that something is made in France, let's say, most of us, I think that that means everything about the bag is made in France. The entire process is done in France. And that's just not true in a lot of cases. Products to make the bags, the leather, the canvas, the coating for the canvas, the zippers, the lining, all those little pieces are made in different places in the world, imported, and then the final assembly, or at least part of the final assembly, is done in that country. This is true in many cases, maybe not in all. Maybe Hermes does everything in France. But I saw a documentary recently, and I'll link that below if I can find it again, about leather factories in Italy. These are factories that are hired by many of the big brands, Louis Vuitton, Prada, Gucci, all these guys, Chanel. And it's very interesting, which gets me to my next point, which is that a lot of people say, partly because these bags are supposedly made in these countries that are better somehow, that the work conditions and the pay for the employees who make the bag and go through the whole process, that the work conditions are better and the pay is higher than in places like China, for example. And that's not necessarily true. If you watch this documentary that hopefully I can find and link below, you'll see that in these leather factories, which is certainly part of the handbag process, the conditions are not so great, and people are cheated out of pay because they take advantage of immigrant workers and they're able to manipulate hours and pay and not pay them how they should be. not pay them fairly and ethically. So one of the arguments people make is that these designer bags are worth the extra money that they cost because the people making them are paid better, so the bag costs more than, say, something from China. But that is not necessarily true. Similar point is that people say the ethics are better of the luxury bags compared to some of the other bags. And for the same reasons I just mentioned, that is not necessarily true. And of course, I'm not saying it's never true. What I am saying is that a lot of people argue with the inspired bags, the dupes, the fakes, that it's all part of this dark underbelly. And that's a big reason to buy authentic over the other bags. However, you have to be aware that that dark underbelly also exists for the luxury bags. Now, I love the authentic bags just as much as anyone else, I think. I love them enough to have a whole YouTube channel about luxury handbags. But let's not fool ourselves into thinking that these authentic bags are somehow really so much better than the inspired bags or the fakes. So if you happen to be one of those people who believes that authentic is the very best and you look down on inspired bags and fake bags, you may have some reasons to do that I haven't mentioned yet because I'll get into them in my next two videos. But I would encourage you to try to think a little differently about it and question why you think your bags and perhaps you are so much better than these other bags and the people who choose to carry them. Because as you'll see in my next two videos, there are certainly legitimate reasons to carry authentic bags, but there are also very legitimate reasons to carry inspired or dupe bags, and even fakes. You may also want to check out my video called Louis Vuitton is not for poor people, especially if you are of that perspective that I mentioned earlier where you feel like only people of a certain income level should have these bags. So what is your opinion on all this? Let me know in the comments section below. What other reasons do you have for authentic bags being so much better than the others, or not? So be sure to subscribe and click the bell notification icon so you'll be certain not to miss any more of my videos. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic day. Bye.